Hey y'all, I'm James Wright and welcome back to the shop. A while ago I did a video on this tenon cutter and a lot of people were commenting in the chat, can you do dowels with that? And yes, you can do short dowels with it, but the problem is the plug is up here, and so if you run a dowel through there, it just runs into the stop at the top. And that means that you can't do long dowels with it. Now they do make dowel cutters that actually have a gear on the outside and allow the dowel to go all the way through it, and so the crank is over here. But those are like $300 or $400 monstrosities that sit on top of your bench. And that is where a dowel plate comes into. And I really want to talk through what is this dowel plate and how to use it. So let's take a look at this thing. So this is a dowel plate from DFM Toolworks. He just released these and they are absolutely gorgeous. I purchased one on the first time out. This is not sponsored at all. He isn't doing this. I just bought this because I've been wanting it for a while. You can see the color tone on it with the straw. They have been tempered perfectly. And then they have the acid etching in here for all the marking. Absolutely gorgeous piece of work. But I want to show you this today. If you don't have one of these or you don't have the money to spend for it, it's not a huge problem. What you can actually do is get an old file and anneal it so it's softened and drill holes through the size you want and then harden it again with tempering. And then you'll have yourself a dowel plate. That's basically all it is holes that you can drive things through. And if you have a hard piece of steel, you can make a dowel plate yourself. So I want to show you a little bit about this particular dowel plate. It has screws on here so you could build a frame to hold it. I don't intend to do that because it's just as easy for me to put this in the vise. But one of the interesting things about this is they aren't just holes drilled through. But if you look at it from the other side, the holes are actually wider on the back side than they are on the front. And this creates a small cutting edge, so when you put something through there, it's not going to jam up. And this makes it a very easy thing to have and a fantastic plate. Also, there is a rim around the outside to make it a little easier to mount into the box so that you can screw it into. I'm not intending to do that, but maybe sometime in the future, if people really want me to, I can show you how I would make a box for this. So that's a quick walk around of the plate itself. Maybe sometime in the future I'll make a dowel plate out of an old file. If you want to see that, let me know down below. That might make an interesting video. But today I want to show you how does a dowel plate work and what can you do with it. So let's take a stick of wood and dive into this. So the first thing you need is a solid surface to pound on because you're going to be driving dowels down into this. The next thing you need is a space for the dowel to go into. Right now, if I put this through, I can only make a dowel that's the thickness of the plate. And that's why some people actually make a box to raise it up, and that box can be supported or clamped into another surface so that when you drive it through, there's actually a box holding it up. What I end up doing is just putting this flat on the bench top, and then I'll move the hole that I want over a dog hole. And this way I can drive the dowel down through the dog hole. If I really wanted to, I could put it in the vise and just hold it on these small lips on the side, which makes it really easy for doing that. And I can drive down into that. It's also solid, so it's not moving around. But for me, I just prefer to have it on the bench top. It's just a little bit faster and easier. So let's talk through the wood that you're going to need. This is just an old scrap that I had lying around, but usually you want to cut it into a square size, a little bit larger than what you want for the dowel. You also need perfectly straight grained. If it's not straight grained, you're going to get a lot of tear out on the side. In this particular one, it's not straight grained up here and it is straight grained down here, so I'll be able to show you the difference in what happens with straight grain and grain that runs out the side of the dowel. So I have this square, but I want to actually do a little bit like a pencil carving on the end here so that it can start to fit into the first hole. So just taking off these corners makes it so it can fit into that. And then I'm going to find the first smallest hole that it fits into without jamming up completely. So let's try there. This is 15-30 seconds. So at this point, the biggest thing is you want to keep this vertical. If it starts leaning over to one side or the other, you're going to get a crooked dowel. And so I want to keep it up and down, hold it in place, and just tap it down through. And you'll start to see the shavings come out as this takes off the corners all the way around. So on this dowel, we have a nice straight grain down here, and it's a fairly smooth cut. But then over here, the cut starts tearing out and chipping, and that's because the grain is running out at the end, and it's breaking off. So that shows you a little bit of the difference. So now that we've done the 15-30 seconds, then we can move it up into the next one, 7/16, and keep on going from there. You can see on the straight grain section you're getting these nice curls, and as you get into the rough grain you'll start seeing it chip off more. There we go. Now we can move up to the next hole. then on to the next hole. And we're just going to keep progressing until we get to the size we want, which I'm going to stop at this next one because I want a 3/8 inch dowel. Just like that. Beautifully clean dowel. So there is our 3/8 inch dowel. So a couple things about this. Number one, I know this is precisely 3/8 of an inch diameter because it went through the 3/8 inch hole. The stuff you get to the store will change over time as it expands and contracts from moisture. It'll actually start to turn into oval. Whereas if you make your dowel just before you're going to use it, you know that this is perfectly round. Also from the factory, they're going to use a roundover bit. So they're actually going to do half of it here and half of it here. And sometimes those two bits aren't perfectly level. Then you'll get a ridge running along one side and a ridge running along the other side. So your dowel isn't perfectly round. If you ever put calipers on it, you'll notice that it actually isn't exactly what you want. One of the good things about making your own dowels with a dowel plate is that if you want to match your wood to what you're working, you have white oak and you can't find white oak dowels, well, now you can make your white oak dowels from the exact same wood that you're working with and they match perfectly. Or you could do something really contrasting and do something wild like ebony or purple heart or something of that nature where it's a very different wood. It's finding ebony dowels and purple heart dowels are very hard and very expensive, but if you make your own, you can do them a little bit cheaper with a simple dowel plate. And it's really a lot of fun to drive one of these through it. So this dowel plate does 5/8 all the way down to 1/8. One of the things you have to be careful about is the length of the stick is very important. If I'm driving a 5/8 through, I could probably do a 3-foot long dowel and it'd still be strong enough. But with 1/8, I can't do a 3-foot long dowel. I'm probably going to be only doing about 3, 4, maybe 5 inches at most. And rarely do you need a dowel longer than that on that size, but you just want to think through that. Don't try and drive a 4-foot long dowel through the 1/8 hole. You're probably going to end up with splinters. So this is the DFM Toolworks dowel plate, and I highly suggest it. I am in love with this thing, and I'm going to be doing a lot of dowels for my bed, and so I got this because I want to do something a little bit more fun with the dowel pins for it. He also comes with this whole sheet of directions and sizing, and actually has ways of how do you sharpen this, because over time it will dull a little bit, but you have to do a lot of dowels to dull this thing out, and you can actually sharpen this plate. So definitely worth taking a look at. I'll leave a link to that down below. So I hope you like this tutorial on how to make dowels. They are a lot of fun, and once you've done a few of them, it becomes so simple, and you'll find yourself putting dowels in other ways. It's a great way to add a little extra intrigue to a piece, because if you put a dowel in there and flush cut it off, you'll end up with this dot on the woodwork. And I've seen a lot of pieces where there's just a whole bunch of little dots, and they're a bunch of dowels, and you can make them yourself out of any particular wood that you want. A fun tool to have around. So I hope you liked this video. I'd love to hear your questions, thoughts, leave them down below. If you did like it, please like, comment, and subscribe. Share this around. That really helps out the channel. So I think that's about it for today. And until next time, have a wonderful day. So to set up for your dowel plate, you just need to make sure that the dowel plate goes above the dinner plate and right beside the salad plate.